Well guys, we got a 2003 Cummins. It is here because it is not feeling well. These early 24 valves, they have some issues with their cylinder heads where they like to drop valve seats. This one was a victim of such. She dropped a valve, tagged a piston. Actually happened twice with the head that was on it. A buddy of mine has this truck, runs a lawn care business with it, and he kind of got fed up with that head, chunked it to the side and got a whole nother head and brought it to me. So now I've got a new head to put on this truck, and let's just kind of go from there. So when you pop the hood and look in here, currently there's not quite so much a motor. And you can see where we had some valve tag right there. It's done a good job keeping it all slicked down. It's been apart for a little while, but been spraying it down with some kind of mystery goop of something, who knows. But let me see if I can search around in here and figure out where all these parts are and start putting it back together. We've got a genuine Cummins head gasket. That's good. Well, that's a rather large tote of parts. We've got injectors and push rods. There's some stuff like valve cover and stuff like that. I'll leave it in there for right now. Oh gosh, now it's time for a hernia. If anyone has ever put a cylinder head on a 6-cylinder Cummins engine, these things are ridiculous heavy. This cylinder head weighs almost as much as what some car engines do just by itself. Alright, bear with me in case I fall down. I ain't gonna lie to you, I probably should have stretched before I did that, man. That thing heavy. Crap. Oh. Oh, junk. Get something old with casters on it. There's always one caster that can beat the garbage. It's not too good right there. Let's see if we can fix that before we die on it. Ow! Get off my finger. Fuck you, bitch. Tried to hurt me, y'all. Well, it's awful sketch, but that's all we got for now, I guess. Sure as hell don't want to pick this thing up again. Thank goodness. You do the hard work now. Well, I had intention on just blowing whatever concoction he had out of here, but see if I can show this to you. This stuff is gross. It is coming out like honey. I assume it's like Lucas or something like that, but I mean, it did a pretty good job at keeping it from rusting, but ugh, it is gross. Here we are, about 45 minutes later, and a couple rolls of paper towels. We got most of it all cleaned out. Well, I came across a problem. I was about to get ready to put the gasket on when I realized that there was only one alignment dowel in the engine. I did not want to take a chance with that. I called around in town and no one else had one. So I looked around in the shop and I ended up finding a piece of tubing. Make that work. Well, what's the worst that can happen? And I believe it's going to work really well. It is a little bit sticking out a little bit longer than the one in the back, but looking at how they have these holes made, at least in the head portion of it, they've got, you know, they can be as long as they want to, evidently. There's nothing in there that's going to prevent something a little bit longer from going in there. So I think I'm going to be okay. We're using ARP studs on this engine, which kind of gives me another cool thing to help me keep my head aligned as it's going down on there. I got one started in the front, and I'm about to install another one in the back now that I got a little room back there, or at least in the midways of it, and that'll help me. Just gotta make sure it goes down onto my homemade dowel pin that I made. One thing that's a little bit easier with the ARPs as opposed to the stock head bolts, stock head bolts actually have 3 different length bolts that go into the head in different locations. When you go to the ARPs, they actually only have 2 lengths. The longer of the 2 of them all go along the exhaust edge. So it's going to be this guy, that one, the one behind the water tube, and all the way in the back. And those are the long ones, and then the rest of them are all the same length. The first passing sequence is to 40 pounds. Alright, now after I get the head all tightened down in the 3 sequences, we get the 40 pounds, the 75 pounds, and then the 125 pounds, all in the clockwise pattern, going all the way outward from the middle. After all that's done, and you're good and tired from that, you go eat supper, and then you come back out, and you put your exhaust manifold with your new graphite style gaskets on there that have the fire ring built in. I don't like the original style ones that have they're just like the regular metal crush style. They kind of leak a lot. So you want to get that good drive pressure. Make sure your hole set's good and healthy, pumping out air. So now all I really got left to do is put my valve train back together. Finish putting all my fuel goodies back together. One note. One of the hardest things to do if you mess things up and get things all bent up and not careful is when you follow the return line. What's different about a 24 valve than a 12 valve engine is it's all diesel injectors are going to have a return line that comes off of it. Diesels use a return fuel to lubricate the injectors, keep them cool. All that good jazz, as well as just keeping them from over pressurizing. Normally they have like a little rubber tube that'll run alongside them, but since these guys are all internal, they've built an internal galley inside the head, and it actually comes out the very back side of the head. When it does, it loops back around here. There's a banjo bolt very similar to this guy that runs on the very back side of the back of the head. And if you get crazy ripping your head out and get that line all bent up, you're gonna have a bad day trying to get it all lined back up. The fuel filter assembly bolts to the side of the head, and that's what the line is attached to. So you may want to, what I like to do is start with one bolt and get it to where I can kind of wiggle it around, but it's not pulling down on it. After you do that, boy, that glare is bad. After you do that, you can kind of wiggle the assembly around and get your banjo bolt started back there. It's a 19mm bolt, and just really carefully don't cross thread that guy into the head, because you'll you only got one of these heads, you know, so don't mess that guy up. ARP's instructions tell you to go and make a clearance back here. You can see there's a small clearance made already for the head bolt head to go in there, but the aftermarket nut and washer assembly on the ARP is a little bit bigger, and so they say to take a mill and document, or cut it out. Some people don't do it and get away with it, but I don't want to risk having an oil leak coming off this back side here, so let's just go ahead and mill that guy out. I'm going to go ahead and use my my DeWalt 1/4 inch inline grinder with a little carbide on it, and we'll let that guy eat. Wow, you are a straight fucking retard. Well, sometimes instead of going to the machine shop, you have to be the machine shop. Clean her up, and I think we'll be good to go. The differences in like a steel carbide versus one made for cutting aluminum is this one's obviously for steel, and you can see when you cut that aluminum it clogs up your carbide, so I have to use like a carding brush to unclog that guy and get it to where it starts cutting well again. There's kind of a look at why we had to mill that place out. You can see that bolt head kind of sits nicely in our pocket in there now. Alright, we got all our rocker assemblies on here. Got all of our tie bars on. The dots always face towards the intake side of the engine, going all the way down. As you're installing these guys, be real careful, especially on older ones. These little plastic cups right here are designed to hang on to the valve lash cap, which is a little metal piece that kind of swivels around on the end of this guy. When these guys like to crack from heat over time, it'll allow the metal part on the end to fall off the little tip. And if you guys are putting this thing in here and you allow one of them to fall down in your oil drain holes or down into a push rod hole or something, basically going to be pulling the motor apart to find it, you know, playing find a part. And that's never fun. So let's get the rocker box installed on, get the wire harness put on all the injectors, and we'll be ready to keep trucking. Went ahead and set the valve lash on each one of the valve tappets. I'll go into another video in more detail on doing that later. And then we put the rocker box on with the wire harness attached to each injector. Now we'll just install our valve cover and start putting all of our final goodies back together. Well, I've been kind of busy. I got everything on the turbo side hooked up. I got the rest of the valve cover and the plastic cover set on there. We got our boost elbow stuck on. One of the things that was the most pain in the butt though is they brought the entire wire harness to me in a box like spaghetti, and nothing was labeled, so I had to kind of play with all these runs trying to figure out what goes to what. Also, there was a sensor that was different on this head from the old head, so I had like one plug that was just not matching up with anything. I also had to go and get an alternator bracket because this guy was missing. It was over where the head was across town, so a bunch of fun stuff. Oiled up. Believe I got everything plugged in right. So back with the key a few times and leave it here with the light off. I don't see fuel hitting the ground anymore. battery cables. Next up, clean battery terminals. Here's a CRC battery cleaner. Take your wife's toothbrush, give her a little scrub. One of the most important things is you have to flush away the cleaner afterwards with water. Only the best bottled water for my batteries. Alright, well, let's see if she wants to play ball now with some clean battery terminals, or cleaner. She don't want to work. One thing that was kind of slightly confusing with this wiring debacle is that the camshaft sensor and the crank sensor appear to have the same plug on them. So, and they both appear to be long enough to reach. Let me get in here and see if I can maybe switch them around, see if that makes any difference, because I don't know which one goes where. Here we go. Wish me luck. Alright. Well, let's see what that is. If we get anything. Definitely got a pretty good misfire to it. So, I don't know. It runs, not well. That's about as close as we get to a machining video around here.